Good boy, baby.
Alfred, if you wouldn't mind, can you explain to us just the conceptual notions behind your series Two Fronts, which is what will be on view in the exhibition that opens this evening? It is what it is.
All right. Well, the series Two Fronts, I've been working through it since about 2015. And this work is about the societal war that's been waged against Black society here in this country since this country's inception. And, you know, there are two fronts that we have to fight, society as a people. That's the outward forces when it comes to politics, it comes to racism, white supremacy, lack of equal protection, all of these things that beleaguer every Black neighborhood and enclave in the country. And then there's the other side, the things we have to deal with from within. When it comes to how those forces affect how we spend our money, how we vote, how we raise our children, how we treat one another. And the list goes on and on. So when it comes to that dynamic, the work began with me doing landscape pieces. And I used to place colossuses that were representative of people in the neighborhoods around the city. I'm from Atlanta, and I would go around to, through Southwest or, out in Decatur and photograph neighborhoods that people locally were familiar with and place these statues that were reminiscent of the people in those places. As the series progressed, I thought that I needed to take the works into a more personal direction and start getting to meet folks who are in these neighborhoods, get to talk to them and get to understand who they were and what they were doing and what their lives were about, the realities they had to deal with. And I got into the portrait arm of the series. And that's currently what I'm working through now.
And can you speak a little bit about the subjects that you depict in your paintings?
Yeah. It's interesting. When I go out in the street and meet folks, people tell me a lot about what they're doing. And I don't try to pull it out of them, but when I explain, that I'm an artist, I'm a painter, and, kind of what I'm doing in the midst of me getting permission and taking photographs of them, they tell me stuff. And, a lot of times I get a lot more information that I think they didn't think they were volunteer, upon, our interaction. But, what people tell me, where they're going, where they work, kids, children, all different types of things. And with that interaction, I go back to my studio and, I go through the photographs and I kind of edit down what I think best captures what that person shared with about what their life is like, who they are, what they're experiencing. And I distill that down into imagery that's the base for the paintings and drawings that I do.
So when you're going into these different neighborhoods around Atlanta, where you're from, how do you decide?
I can split something up real quick.
Yes.
I've been in Atlanta for 20 years, but I'm originally from Fort Valley.
Yes.
So I was trying to let everybody know that. Fort Valley, Mays, Middle Georgia guy, so let y'all know.
Thank you for clarifying.
Just clarifying.
It is important.
Yeah.
So when you're going around Georgia, how do you decide who you're going to engage with, who you're speaking with? Like, how do you kind of nail down your subjects?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like a feel thing because, I'm 6'2", about 280 pounds. And more often than not, when somebody sees me, I kind of get an idea if they want to talk to me or not. If like I'm a threat to them. I don't want to have to step somebody and I gotta de-escalate something before we even have a conversation about what I do. It's a feel thing. That's kind of like, I've been doing it long enough to kind of understand what somebody gonna want to talk or say something to me or not, And I got to be careful about that because, I've had situations where, again, I'm a large man, but, people got them things out here. So I don't want to, I try to be wary of my approach, and if somebody is, if I know somebody's visibly, not approachable, like you can see it on them. I take my time with that. I just avoid it altogether. And I try to meet people or interact with folks in places where people are, there's not no stress around, barbershops, people getting something to eat, grocery store, that type of stuff. Things like that where you can spare a second to say, what's up? Can you give me a second? Places where you can strike about a half a second of a conversation and it'll turn into something else. So that's usually how I do it.
And so when you approach people and tell them that you're an artist and that you want to paint them, what is the response that you typically get? Are people excited or confused, or what kind of conversations do you end up having?
Well, a lot of times they don't believe me. But so I have to have things, I gotta have some, images of my work, with me next to the work, produced, like physically showing them that this is what I do. And that usually gets them like, oh, okay then, let me go. And, things go as they go. But more often than not, people are usually cool with it, And then when I show them, finished images, they usually put some more at ease about, talking with me, let me photograph. And then after, those are the first people I show my work to. I either get email or something, or if I don't have email or text, I shoot them an image, and I haven't had anybody who's not been happy with how they depicted in my work, And that's, to me, that's one of the most rewarding things, is having those people sign off on and just be happy, Hey man, I want to put that on my album cover, something, that type of thing. But it's a great exchange. I love it.
So do you find when you share these images that people are wanting to engage with the art world more? Because I feel like there is this distance between our communities and the art world or the art market or the global kind of conversation and discourse around fine art and what it means to be a fine artist and to show your work in those spaces. The gallery is one of those spaces as well. So I'm curious if people feel, if you get the sense that people want to lean more into what you're doing, and if they feel invited in those spaces.
I gotta call it as it is. Unfortunately, despite the fact all I do and depict is black folks, and I invite them out to the shows, but rarely do folks come out. I think that the reality of that is that most of us ain't been acculturated to gallery spaces. Even folks in my family. I got my mom and my sister, and my brother, they here in town, and I had some, my aunts like, do I gotta pay to get in? Or do I don't, it's a lot. There's nothing uncommon I've heard or had expressed to me about, how they feel or what they know about those going to shows, museums or gallery otherwise. And I think it's just more just exposure, just it's slowly but surely. I can't push them. I can't pull anybody to do something they don't want to do, and may not be familiar with. But just exposure. I know I have more, for me personally, getting younger folks to go. I'm in my mid-40s. So kids, teenagers, and the millennial age folks, they're more apt, more willing to go to those places and come to see shows, and especially they're going to come to see themselves. For sure. So, yeah, I don't have too much issue with that.
Yeah, that's something that at the gallery that I try to really make pivotal in the work that I do, is making sure that people know that they're welcomed in our space. The gallery has a long history of representing Black artists, young and older. We work very closely with the Afrocobra group, which is a collective that was founded on the south side of Chicago in the late 60s that was really all about expressing the needs of the community, a bit short. So as a part of that, it's equally as important to show the work on the walls as it is to welcome people in the space, because there can't be a large gap between them. It's really one conversation. Representation on the walls, representation through the doors, and the people behind the scenes, so myself included. So I do think that that's how it is kind of changing. The younger generations do feel more seen, more included. There's a lot happening in the art world right now that includes a broader scope of people being included in the conversation. So it's nice to hear that the people that you're painting are feeling included in that conversation.
Yes, yes.
So just kind of speaking to the area that we're in right now, driving in from the West Loop of Chicago, which is an area that has been rapidly gentrified. And used to be the West Side, but is now the West Loop. So going from there to here, on the drive in, I know we were having conversations just about how similar Black communities tend to be across the country. No matter what city, no matter what coast you're in, there's kind of these common threads between each place. So can you speak to us a little bit about the community in Atlanta and then what you've seen since you've been in Chicago?
Well, the similarities, the same, when it comes to the businesses I see or the businesses I don't see, very parallel to Southwest Atlanta, Baltimore, DC, Little Rock, Memphis, Miami, very, very parallel in what's present and what isn't. I guess when it comes to that, I guess it should be telling to anybody who's aware of this that there's a societal issue and a societal systems in play that affect us all in some way, shape, or form. And, I'm glad to be here today to talk a little bit about how our work kind of addresses that in regard to, economic marginalization, what people have to do to keep their head up, and to survive, to make sure their households stay afloat, public perception, how we perceive ourselves and who we believe we are, and things of that nature. But this looks like Deal Avenue. This is my compatriot right here, Ojo. He knows that, Southwest Atlanta. And I can just look at the buildings and, the folks walking down the street. I know it's colder here than it is in Atlanta, for sure. But sometimes, what's the old saying? You might go somewhere that the things still stay the same. Yeah, the same thing applies here. Yeah.
On that same note, the title of your show at the gallery that opens tonight is "It Is What It Is." Can you talk to us a little bit about that title?
Well, it was an adage Dick Gregory, the late great Dick Gregory, spoke about when you kind of like the universe gives you some glasses that you can't see out of when you're awakened to the knowledge of your people. You're kind of resigned to a way of seeing things, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't take the glasses off. And nobody knows what you're seeing. And that's kind of, I felt that, took that to heart, because it's kind of like my position as an artist, when it comes to what I know about the history of this country and what has transpired and, all of these benign neglect policies that have been, levied against Black folks everywhere. And, what it is that I'm not a politician. I'm not a philanthropist. I'm an artist. And I know what my abilities are, the extent of what I can do. So, the best way I can serve my people is to make work about the situations that I see. And so I can't get you to see exactly what my perspective is per se, but I try my best through the works I produce. and the narratives behind them.
And do you feel like that speaks to the overall role of an artist in society? I know artists tend to feel a lot of different ways about the role that they play in affecting change or about speaking up about what's going on in their communities. So do you feel that what you're doing with your work is what you were meant to do as an artist? Or do you see that there's something more that you could do? Or how do you just kind of feel about the power that your work has in society?
Well, I think at this point, I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing. Regard to my practice, and I'm glad that my work so far has, I've seen it being used as a position or, as a visual arm to describe the condition, material, and otherwise how Black folks are living. I'm proud of it. But who knows? I'm in my 40s. Maybe down the line I would maybe get tapped to be, to go into a political office. Do something along those lines. I love to talk. But I'm a social commentator. That's where I've always stood. That's where my both my feet have always been in the realm of being a maker. Talk about what I see. And and if I can't say what I should, there should be a mandate for all Black artists to do that. But for me, it's the space that I wouldn't say be comfortable in, because there's no comfort in in speaking about what I see through my work. I think every artist has to address what they do, honestly. Be it about themselves or or whatever subject matter they choose to take. But for me, this is my lane.
And what would you say to a young Black artist that happens to walk into a gallery or a museum and see your work and is curious about being an artist or is inspired by what you're doing? What sort of guidance or advice would you give them?
Wow. I would tell them, look at as much artwork as you could possibly see. See as much work as you can here or elsewhere, so you make sure that you're not doing what somebody else is doing. That's what I would say first. Two, I would say take chances. My high school art teacher back in the day used to tell me, he said, you gotta learn all the fundamentals so you know what rules to break down the line. So, learn as much as you can and then take chances, break those rules to try to come up with something that fits your direction. Also, I would tell them to keep in mind that art is a business. This is a business. Once something leaves your studio, it is commodity. So think about it as such. Also, again, I know what I said previously, but keep what your people think about you and what you're doing, your practice in mind. You don't have to make your work about Black folks, but don't go into what you produce to tear down the image of Black men and Black. Say that.
So you mentioned something interesting, that once the work leaves your studio, it becomes a commodity. So
Yeah.
how do you feel that there's a conversation between depicting Black people and it becoming a commodity to the underlying commodification of Black people in this country? That's a loaded question, but
It is.
I'm curious.
It's a loaded question, but it's true. I mean, Black skin and Black talent as stored value is as old as this nation. It's as old as the West, and I'm ever cognizant of that. That's why I want to make sure that we're cognizant of it. At all stages, especially starting out. That if you can do something well, somebody's going to pay for it, or somebody's going to try to exploit you for what you do, or what type of talent or anything of value you have. So